Hello there. Welcome to Atrayo's Oracle podcast. This is Ivan Pozo-Illas, your host. Um, this is our inaugural show, and I just wanted to give you a little introduction of who and what I am. So, first of all, I am an angelic oracle, which sort of means I channel angels. But I don't usually do it as a trance. I do so through automatic writing, which I've been practicing now for 20 years' time. Although I had my spiritual awakening or first contact by the angels 26 years ago. I've had many come through, and none of them would offer up a name, so they would although let me give them nicknames. I have other spiritual gifts. I'm an empath. Besides of that, I also do stitchumacy, which is an ability to open up a book randomly and get in a spiritual message or a message that's needed at any point. A similar ability, which is how I eventually figured out I had that ability, is called bibliomacy, which is opening up the Bible at random parts and getting snippets all as one message. So I also do dream interpretation, and my main gift is that of a sage or of a mystic sage. Since for the past 20 years of doing automatic writing, I have been writing spiritual wisdom statements, which are usually 1 or 2 pages of automatic writing. So, and to date, I've written about 2,070 or so of these statements, which I've published 3 books of this material called the Jewels of Truth series. They're in volumes 1 through 3, and the third one, which I published earlier this year. And the reason why I've pretty much started this podcast was my angels pretty much have told me to get out of my psychic closet. So here I am, trying to get my best foot forward. And of course, with my host of angels, since I don't just channel one angel through automatic writing or through, mental telepathy, but I get numerous ones. It sort of feels like anyone that's on desk duty is the one I get. And more or less the intent of this podcast would be to share forthcoming spiritual wisdom statements, more or less as I get them, or as I blog them at Atrayo's Oracle and over at Blogger, which has been celebrated at this year, its 10th anniversary online. And my other, you could say, dharmic passion is to offer up conceptual solutions. Although you could say I'm self-taught as an amateur conceptual designer, which sort of means in my case, I offer up solutions that are innovative, even probably visionary, as the angels would sort of urge me to say, for the next society to come. Whoever has the authority or the power or the leverage to get something like that across. And I have about a couple hundred of these posted at Atrayo's Oracle blog site. And I'll be sharing that information here at Atrayo's Oracle podcast from time to time. I usually only make one of those posts a month because it takes more out of me in, you could say, channeling and in reposting it onto the blog, where a Jewels of Truth statement could go anywhere from a page or 2 pages, so I do those at a higher frequency. And I usually post about 5 of those on my blog, and then maybe I could cover that amount here at the podcast as a sort of a verbal cross post, if you will. So that is the general idea. Now that'll be the end of that first segment, and here is where I'll plug Atrayo's Oracle blog site at Blogger, which is what would be a http:// Atrayo's Oracle, which is ATRAYOSORACLE.blogspot.com, and that is the blog that I've had for the past 10 years online. So now that we've come to this second segment, welcome back and thank you for listening. I'm greatly honored that I have got all of you that have been enjoying this a newbie podcast on my behalf here. Now for this section, I wanted to cover my first book, which I published or self-published through iUniverse back in 2007. It's called Jewels of Truth, a Soul Odyssey Within. Now each volume of the three of the volumes I've self-published to date each have 365 spiritual wisdom statements, although some of them could be considered having proverbs. And that is more the case of Volume 1, since back in 2007, you could say each volume is a snapshot of where I was in my spiritual evolution with my angels. And in the beginning, as they would say, these are more proverb-styled statements, and some of them go to a couple paragraphs. And this volume took me many years to put out because for about 18 months time I was sitting on my bum with only 30 left to complete the manuscript, and I didn't do it. I was complacent, I was full of doubt, I would recriminate myself and so forth. And in one day I won a lifetime celebrity psychic reading with Lisa Williams on Lifetime TV, because I also have another hobby of entering free online sweepstakes, and I won a 90-minute reading back in 2007, a couple days after my birthday. And that reading was worth about $500, and I was surprised, but it was a celebrity reading, and basically the reading I had with Lisa Williams got me back going, and within a couple of months I published, or through iUniverse published, my first volume. And you could say each of these volumes are more or less my children, because in real life I don't have any kids, so in a way these are my surrogate children. And I would admit that this one is my first experimental book, and between each of the proverbs or the spiritual wisdom statements, you don't see a divider where you would see in volume 2 and 3. So that's a failure on my part as a newbie author, but that's basically how it came to be. And this book is about 98 pages in paperback length, and it's also available on the Amazon Kindle and also on the Barnes & Noble Nook. So for those who are interested, I'll probably, that's about it for this segment. Thank you for listening, and on to the next segment here, which I guess would be the Jewels of Truth Volume 1 book excerpt reading. I'll just basically, for the next couple of minutes, so you can get a flavor of the book. Although at Amazon there's a preview that you could look into the volume and read at your leisure the first few pages, but you only get, like with those previews, the first maybe dozen or so pages, and here I could probably jump a little bit around. So for example, on the environment section here on page 20 of the paperback of the first volume, God is disguised as nature. In how we preserve nature is how we show our love to God. Now, that is basically just a one-liner, and I've done a lot of those. But sometimes the next statement, which doesn't have the divider, gets melded into it, which would, if I continued, would say, balance is not knowing not to test Mother Nature, but by flowing with the ease of her soul, learning her universal laws, which she uses We can teach humanity how to prevent catastrophe and build wonders that dwarf our combined imagination. Yeah, that is more or less one of the early samples of my automatic writing. That was on the topic of environment. Those were the only two entries. And you'll notice in my other volumes, 2 and 3, I may cover the same topic, and you may consider a continuation of the category, because in volume 3, that one is a chunky one. It has 224 topics, and the size of that as a paperback is about the size of volume 1 and 2 put together. So, and I'm already writing, in fact, volume 6, but I'm behind the 8 ball in getting these published. I've only published 3, so I've got 4 and 5 volumes that or volumes 4 and 5 that need to be put together in a manuscript form before I could send it off and get it self-published, because these books are always written in an A to Z format. They're not written in chapter form, so it makes it easier for the reader just to pick up and get some empowerment, some upliftment, some inspiration, and of course, hopefully, wisdom that heals the spirit within. Like, here's another topic, divine order, here on page 15. Underneath the chaos and mayhem of the world lies divine order, synchronized to perfection, that has always been a mystery to all those existing in duality. And here's another one. A mystic is one who journeys the mysterious with adoration in her heart, only to discover that everything that is chaos is actually a structured symphony of life that produces orders that are infinite in magnitude. Now that one is an interesting one. And to break it down, when we have like an event or maybe even something that we find distasteful that we've experienced in life, up close, we don't have the perspective. It's only by stepping back and maybe getting a corridor perspective view, we could start to see how things, sort of like a quarterback with 20/20 view, why they happen in that certain order, where while we were experiencing it, we were clueless and probably flustered. So that second one on divine order is going in that direction. Here's another one, discernment, also on page 15. Things in life may always appear as beautiful to the eye, but to the mind they are tied to consequences that often more than not are illusionary. By not probing beyond the surface into the foundation of a person or an event led by false perception. So that is basically pay attention and know what you're dealing with is on the surface and what is actually in the substance below the surface, at the depth of a situation or a person. What is their motivation? What is their fear that is pushing them to behave in a certain way? Or what is their joy that they're binding to as a conviction in how they're doing their own activities in life? So here, let me jump a little bit beyond the sample range that you would get in the free preview section. Let's go to page 59 under opportunity. Again, I'm always using the paperback version because I've got all 3 volumes to my side. I usually don't have an ebook reader, so I'm old school that way. And of course, with each of these volumes, when I do automatic writing, I write it in longhand with pen and paper. So these really take a while to put together in a manuscript, which probably take me close to, besides writing them, maybe 2 to 3 years, because I go in fits and starts putting these things together as my own form of dharma. So here we are, page 59, opportunity. Those with much love in their beings will pass by many open doors awaiting them. Those with much fear in their beings will not move far in life, due to restricting oneself by only encountering closed doors whenever they travel. So that one, that is basically speaking about the milestones in someone's life. When something, you could say positive change, people could get intimidated by the negative as well as with the positive, especially if it's something you've been praying for all your life and it finally arrives. You may be giddy and go right through, you could say, the archway of good fortune, or you could get apprehensive and choke up and get cold feet, which is basically just you just gotta have to take a deep breath and take that leap of faith and just go through that archway, see where it goes, sort of like in a science fiction sense, go through the portal and see where it lands on the other end. And let's see here. Page 59 on optimism. Those who say no constantly, all they see are walls and traps to fall in. Those who say yes consistently, all they see are open doors to pass through, awaiting them with open arms of blessed fate. And that basically dovetails to what I was just mentioning. If you've got cold feet, you just got to take a leap of faith, and if it's for your highest good, you're going to experience a wonder. One that you've probably, through discipline, have put yourself through sacrifice, and you have a benediction. Let me see. Let me stop here on page 70 on the paperback under salvation. A ray of light in our souls can always make a difference, even if it is in the abyss of darkness. The ray of light may appear solitary, but it has the authority and potency of the kingdom of God within to rescue its kind unconditionally. Basically, kindred will attract kindred. Like kind attracts like kind. So if you're benevolent and are the living light of the soul, you'll attract, you could say it as a form of magnetism, those who resonate at your perhaps your range of development as a person and as a spiritual being. So basically that's it for the excerpts reading. Now I would like to let you know that on Facebook I have an Atrayo's Oracle as well. So I keep on using the same name, so because just to get, I guess, brand awareness. And this is a fan page of Atrayo's Oracle where I post when I put a blog post, a blogger, and I also do daily little snippets of spiritual wisdom, like those pictures that people put with a quote. I usually put one of those down and I put my own little spin on it on top. So please visit and like that page. And thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and an honor that you've stayed with me this long. And until next time, until episode 2 of the podcast, where I'll discuss more about volume 2 and a few other snippets. So thank you, and have a good day and good journey.